Good morning, everybody. It's been a while since I've had a video to share with you because it's been a long, hot summer and we've been really busy. And like lots of folks, I just haven't had time to get around to it. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about and display to you with some dogs that I have here. So it might be a lengthy video, or it might be a several part video. I'm not quite sure. As you know, I don't edit anything, so we'll just see how it goes along. But a couple of things that I'm going to touch on. I've got a good size Husky Shepherd mix that I'm working with right now here, and I also have a small, I think it's a multi-poo mix. I'm not sure if it's a multi-poo, but it's somewhere in that area. And I'm going to be working with both dogs, a large dog and a small dog. But a couple of things that I wanted to touch on today, besides the differences in working with a dog of big size versus small size, is understanding the breed characteristics that go into both of these dogs, and recognizing that you have to deal with these dogs when you're training them differently because of their characteristics that exist just in their bloodlines alone. Of course, each dog has its own disposition, and you have to factor that in as well. But there are breed characteristics that a high percentage of the time are going to be influential in how you work with those dogs. Now, there's always going to be the exception to the rule where you have a very big dog that's very gentle and a very small dog that's very reckless. But for the most part, understanding the breed characteristics, the individual dog's disposition will help you in determining how you go about working with that dog. The other thing too that, and I don't want to I don't want to get into a debate with folks that disagree with me on this. This is just my opinion. Having a space for dogs to be able to run and exercise and play and have a good time is very important. Some people say that I need to burn the energy off of my dog before my dog will listen to me. I don't accept that, at least the way I just stated it. A dog should listen to you at all times. If they're properly trained and they respect you, they should listen to you whether they have a lot of energy to burn off or not. However, I do agree that a lot of dogs, most dogs, need to burn off some energy just because they are dogs. And this is where I get into a little bit of rub with some people, and that's with the public dog parks. I recognize that the public dog parks are necessary for many, many folks with dogs. As you can see here, this is my place, and I've got acres available to me. And I'm fortunate, and the dogs that are here working with me right now, as well as my own dogs, are fortunate to have this available to them as well. Not everybody has this type of space available to them privately that they can work with their dogs and give their dogs the opportunity to run and burn off energy and have a good time. And because of that, I recognize the necessity of the dog parks. The problem that I have with the dog parks are many. First of all, I've been to them quite a bit here in the Milwaukee area. I don't know how they are in other areas, but here in the Milwaukee area, they tend to be a little bit cliquey. In other words, there's a lot of people that are at a particular dog park that are there on a regular basis. And that's okay, because they get to know one another and they get to know one another's dogs. And they're comfortable recognizing that their dog is going to be safe in and around the presence of these other dogs that are there on a regular basis. but not everybody's part of the clique. In other words, there's always newcomers, and you don't know what that dog's or that owner's attitude is towards its dog, how well trained it is, how well behaved it is, and you also have then the influence of the other dogs that are comfortable being there on a regular basis. They have their clique as well. So when you come there as a new person to that area with a new dog, not only do you have a little bit of maybe reservations about the people that are there because you don't know how they handle their dogs, but the dogs have reservations about the new dog that just came. So you might have, you could have, you could have a situation where a perfectly calm, nice golden retriever that never has any issues with any of the dogs all of a sudden gets upset because a new dog comes into the picture. So you always have to recognize this when you go to these dog parks, because many people don't keep their dogs on any type of restraints. I have here, and you've seen me use something like this in my other videos. This is about a 30-foot lead that I use even here at my own property, because I won't give the dog the chance to learn to disobey me. So by not wanting to come back, for instance, they're having so much fun playing, whether it's alone or with other dogs, and now it's time to go, and you try to reel them in and they don't want to come back. Having a 30, 40, 50-foot lead on them gives you the ability to prevent them from disobeying you. But I've noticed that at a lot of the dog parks that the people have the attitude, which is good, to let their dogs have the freedom to run and frolic and have a great time. And I'm okay with that until it gets to the point where there's an issue. And because you can't predict that, because you can't predict when there's going to be an issue, I tend to try to stay away from these parks. And as long as I have this space available to me, I'm going to continue to stay away from there. Now, if you're going to go to the dog parks, right now it's about 6 o'clock in the morning, I think, give or take a few minutes. The dew is on the grass. We're in the middle of August, and I'm going to get ready to work with these dogs, and I'm going to put some of this work on camera. Not a whole lot of people at dog parks at 6 in the morning. So if you do have to go to a dog park, and you do have the time to be able to go, especially in the summertime when the sun comes up so early, 5 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the summer. Now it's a little bit, it's more like 5:30, quarter to 6 before the sun starts to come up. But go there early before there's a lot of activity. If you're truly trying to give your dog the time to be able to run and burn off its energy without having an altercation with somebody else. The last reason that I have an issue with these dog parks is, even though your dog is immunized with vaccinations, not unlike human beings, when we go and get a flu shot each year, that doesn't mean that we can't catch the flu. And just because your dogs have vaccinations doesn't mean that there isn't something that could happen with your dog where it can contract an illness that the vaccination didn't protect them from. And the more dogs that you're exposing your dog to, and the more feces that might be on the ground and other things that are on the ground, not just from dogs but other animals, there is a chance that you could get your dog sick because of it. So this is not designed to get into a battle with a lot of people who really love going to these dog parks, and I'm really happy that they're available for the people. And I'm just pointing out a couple of things to be cautious about, and maybe pick a time that's a little bit earlier if you're not one of the regulars that go to these parks, so that you can have the space for your dogs to work with. Okay, now here comes the part in the tape that I don't know if I'm going to actually be going to the next part of the addition to this video or a new video, because I haven't done this before where I'm going to pause this. But I'm going to pause this. I'm going to go and get Harvey. Harvey is my 65-pound Shepherd Husky mix, and he's a rescue dog. I think it's from Alabama. He's the second Husky mix dog that I've had in here this summer, and there's a lot of similarities between the two dogs that have been here this summer, and I want to kind of talk about that when I refer to the breed tendencies that a dog might have. One thing that I can tell you at least about Harvey and Coda, who was the other Husky mix that was here earlier this summer, they really want to pull you. Now, a lot of dogs really want to pull you, but because I think the breed tendency of a Husky, sled dogs that are pulling, these dogs have a tendency to pull a little harder with a little bit more strength and a little bit more attitude when they decide that they want to pull. And you as the owner have to be, you need to be sort of on guard all of the time, because for instance a Labrador Retriever might see an animal and their breed tendency is going to be to chase that animal, or so you have to be aware of that. But if a Labrador Retriever starts to move to go and chase after an animal, in many cases they're a lot easier to get under control quicker than something like a Husky that has all of this upper body strength and that rear end strength to just pull. And if you're a smaller person trying to hang on to this dog and you weren't paying attention, this dog can pull away from you or pull you over. So we're going to give Harvey some time to be able to run around a little bit, burn off some of that energy that they need. You know, these sled dogs go for miles and miles and miles, so you can't burn off their energy here in a domesticated area like Wisconsin versus the tundra, for instance. So we're going to work a little bit with Harvey. I'm going to try to show you some of the tendencies that he has. I've been working with Harvey now for I think he's had 7 sessions with me at the owner's home, and now we have him here for a little touch-up work for a few weeks, and then hopefully Harvey will be just about finished. So let me try to pause this, otherwise we'll have a second video. Bear with me. Thank you. Okay, I think this worked. So this is Harvey, and Harvey's a sweetheart, but he does have a lot of strength. He does have a lot of strength, and he does have a tendency to want to pull you around from time to time. Harvey, sit. Good boy. Stay. He's about 2 years old. He's a rescue. He has a very high desire to please, and he has a very high need for treats. So I have to be careful, because if I give him too many treats, then he gets too excitable because he wants more. And also his desire to please, if he's starting to do something wrong. Harvey, sit. Something that is as minor as that, I didn't tell him he could get up. And so if I ignore the fact that he got up without giving him permission, Harvey's the kind of dog that if you give him an inch, he takes a yard, and then from there it gets out of control. So you have to establish control with Harvey immediately, otherwise he takes advantage of it. So he's about 2 years old. He's had 7 sessions with us. He's a pretty good dog until he gets the attitude that he might want to pull a little bit. He also does some counter surfing at home. Harvey, sit. Good boy. He does some counter surfing at home, taking food off of countertops and tabletops. he hasn't done that here. I've had Harvey here for about a week now, and he hasn't done any of that, so I can't really work with him if he doesn't violate the rules. But at home, he's done it as recently as a loaf of bread, I think watermelon. He's a little bit of a thief, so we'll try to work with that the remaining week that I have him here. But for the most part, I'm trying now to just try to get him to obey all of the time. He does need to be able to run a little bit, but he's also a couple of pounds heavier than what he should be. So he's a little out of shape. So unlike a lot of Huskies, he doesn't run very long before he starts to tire out. So this is a great example of a dog that I could take at 6 o'clock in the morning someplace, a public dog park, let him do some running around, burn off some energy, give him a little exercise that he needs so that he maybe can take off a couple of pounds and shape up a little bit. And as well, it will help me in my effort to try to work with him with his basic obedience. Now, Harvey is the type of dog, he knows everything now. He knows how to heel, he knows to sit, he knows everything pretty good, but he can get distracted. I don't know if the camera picked that up just now. There was a dog barking in the distance here, and he heard that. That's why he keeps looking in that direction. And because of that distraction, you have to be on guard. Harvey, heel. Harvey, sit. Sit. Okay. I have to tug a little bit on the chain. I don't like to do that if I don't have to, but because of his disposition, I have to show a little bit of control. I want you to pay attention to how I use my hands. With this dog, it's very important to handle the leash properly. And by handling the leash properly, this is more than just what you've seen me talk about before with the smaller dogs, where you're just kind of jigging for walleyes, I say, with your hands. In a case like this dog, you actually need to use your hands and the leash a little bit differently. You do want to have the collar up as high on the neck as you can, but I do recognize that they do slip down, especially with a dog that might get out of control on you. You're trying to get control. You're not worrying about whether or not the collar has slipped down or not. But my hand movement, when I'm giving him an order, right prior to me giving him an order, I'm going to slide this left hand down real close to the end of this chain. If I keep my hand up here and I lose control of him, I have no control because there's too much distance. No, sit. There's too much distance between this hand and the dog for him to make continue to make mistakes. But if I slide this hand down to here, now I have a really firm grasp and control of the steering wheel, so to speak. So watch how I do this, and I hope the camera is able to pick this up. Okay, Harvey? Heel. And as I start walking, then I'll give him the flexibility of a loose leash. And then once I give him the flexibility of a loose leash, he no longer knows exactly where I'm at. So he has two choices at that moment. One choice is to pay attention to where I am at all times and heel and loose leash walk nicely. Or the other is to start to get ahead of me or off to the side of me and pull this leash tight on me and maybe even try to pull away from me. But when he has a tight leash, he doesn't have to pay attention to me anymore because he knows exactly where I am with this tight leash. That's why loose leash walking is so important, because it requires the dog to pay attention to where his handler is at all times. And when you're walking a dog, you want your dog to be paying attention to you more so than the squirrel that might be on the ground or another dog that might be walking with its owner across the road from you. So handling this dog and the proper movement with your arms. So over the next couple of minutes, hopefully this video will allow you to be able to see how I move my arms. Hey, first I'm going to make him get in the proper heel position. Before we get started, I'm going to slide his collar up, and I'm going to get down close here, heel, and I'm going to bring him around. Sit. Good boy. Now you saw there that I choked or tightened up on this choker a little bit. It's not a choker, it's a martingale collar, but it functions similar to a choker. I tightened that up, and then as he was sitting, I relaxed it. So the reward at this moment was that he got the relaxed leash. It's important that people understand that. I'm not hurting the dog, but I am showing a little bit of superiority or dominance, I guess you can say, which is what I need to do with this dog because of his disposition, the way he acts. Okay, good boy. Now watch my hand movements on the leash. Heel. 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 Harvey, sit. Stay. No. Okay. He moved off of the spot. I have to put him back on the exact spot. We're pretty close to it. Sit. Stay. Now watch my hand on this leash. And this hand too, because I'm going to pull this. No. Sit. Stay. Harvey, heel. Sit. Good boy. Heel. I don't know if you saw that, but when I asked him to come to me, to heel, he started to veer slightly to his left. But because I stayed in control of this leash and brought this down, this left hand down and this right hand pulling it all up out of the way, I was able to steer him back where he was supposed to be. And because he's in the process of training right now, this is going to be what's necessary until he gets it down pat. So while I was doing that, I took a slight step backwards too. That's going to become necessary to learn how to do, moving your hands this way on a recall on a leash and taking a slight step backwards so that you can keep the control and keep the dog from... All right, there's a point between here and here when your hand is like up here that you don't have as much control if you don't step backwards because you have the wet noodle kind of leash. So this is the point where you want the leash to be tight at all times so that you can control the dog. Not to be confused with loose leash walking. So we're pulling this tight, but from this process of getting my hand down to here, I have to make sure I keep it somewhat tight, so I have to step backwards. When I use a 30-foot lead, like you're going to see in a few minutes, you'll see how stepping backwards, I'm going to have to take 10 steps backwards so that I'm able to keep the control of the dog. Okay? Heel. We'll try this one more time, and then I'm going to put him on a long lead. Okay, now we're going to try to do the same thing, only with a loose leash walking. So I'm no longer going to use this movement. No, Harvey, heel. I'm no longer going to use this movement. I'm going to keep it loose leash the whole time. Now he's not quite graduated to this, so I don't know how he's going to do. But the idea behind it is, with the loose leash, he is not going to know where I am unless he's paying attention to me. No, Harvey. Heel. So let's try this. Sit. Good boy. Heel. That's him taking an inch. He's not supposed to be there. Watch how he'll get worse. Now he's 5 feet in front of me. Now we're starting to resort to, look at that. Now he's going to pull away from me. And this is the example that I was saying before of this dog taking an inch into a foot into a yard. So you have to maintain your dominance with this dog at all times. If I used a treat, I would lose control as well, because he's so treat motivated that he loses all of his focus and gets so excited about the treats. So this is a situation where I have to maintain some sort of pack dominance in a way to try to teach him to learn where he's supposed to be all of the time. I don't do it with, I'm not mean to him, I'm not hurting him, but I am firm in my approach so that he understands that he can't do this. Heel. You saw there, I just had to pull him back. That was a trickle-down effect of what I just allowed to happen a moment ago. As we were walking back, he had a tendency to want to see if he could go that far, and I just gave him a slight tug back. And that's I have to practice my ABCs now. I have to always be consistent. So I'm going to have to keep doing this over and over and over and over again until the dog understands that he needs to be right next to me in a heel position at all times, no matter what. And that's the boring part, I suppose, for some people when they're training their own dogs, is that they don't realize that I might have to do this for 3 weeks before the dog, and that's it, before the dog really understands what I want him to do. But you have to be consistent. You have to do it. Heel. See? We wanted to pull away again. Heel. Okay, he was a little bit better that time, and he will get better every time. Sit. Harvey, sit. He'll get better every time. I'm going to close by showing you the recall with this 30-foot leash that I have here. Again, watch how I take up the slack. In this case, I'm going to be reeling the slack off because I have 30 feet, but I'm also going to be backing up to try to keep this dog, the tension between here and here tight, to keep this dog in a nice straight, or as straight as possible, recall that I can do. Okay? Heel. Sit. Stay. I want to get it to the point that I can actually pull on this and he will stay. But right now I don't want to do that. Alright, for now, no. It's sort of my fault because he heard me say all right when I said all right for now. I was about to say sit. I was about to say all right for now. I'm just going to do a little bit of distance, about 10 feet, 15 feet. No, I'm going to do about 10 or 15 feet and then I'll move back a little bit further. But you want to find that distance and duration of time that allows this dog to do the right thing. You don't want him to fail if possible. Stay. Harvey, heel. Good boy. Sit. Good boy. Again, I had to back up quite a bit. And that's, as I was reeling it off, I was keeping the tension tight. I don't know what you can see on the camera. Heel. I'll try it again, and I'll try to be at a little bit of an angle this time. Harvey, sit, stay. And it's a two-step process. It's one is reeling off the slack so that I have control with my left hand, and backing up at the same time, allowing me to keep the tension between me and the dog until the dog gets close enough for my hand to actually be here. Stay. No. No, Harvey. No. Sit. Stay. And when I do the sit, stay, I start off with my right foot. If I'm going to do heel, then I start off with my left foot. This is body language that your dog will get to learn. Stay. Stay.